And Ricky, you'll be happy to know I am making all my color samples little by little. And what I'm doing as I start working with a certain color, then I'll just make the samples from all of those. And then for me, I put a magnet on the back because then I can put them on something metal and so but my husband, along with you, kept after me to make the samples. So
Okay, so I almost don't know what to say. When we talk about color samples, I was writing the other day to on Facebook to a former student who's who yeah, she took a class with me 10 years ago, and she said I'm still trying to make my color samples, and she was showing on Facebook some watercolor paints that she was playing with, and obviously it's much easier and quicker to make watercolor paint samples than enamel samples. And I said to her, if you want to be an artist, you have to know what your colors are. It's like
mhm.
do you want to be an artist or not? I said, it's like being a chef. How can you know what spices to put into your food if you don't know what the spices taste like? If you don't know what salt tastes like compared to pepper or compared to sage or compared to celery seed or compared to chili powder, and all you just see them, how can you know how they're gonna change the flavor and how much they're gonna change the flavor unless you've experimented with them or tried them some way to know what they taste like. And this is no different. I mean, just because it looks kind of purpley in the jar, on the label, or even in the powder. Um, Hold on a second. Jan's coming in. Um, I just don't understand how anyone can think that they can possibly make anything with any kind of control or intention other than a happy accident if they don't use that as a starting point. As I was writing to her, I was thinking, and it's only a starting point because once you know your colors, you're always using your colors next to other colors and over other colors. So whenever you're doing something that you aren't familiar with, it's either going to be a happy accident or an unhappy accident, which is more likely, or you're going to take the time to play to see what's possible. So, again, just making those color samples, Charlotte, it's a baby step. But I'm glad you
Yeah,
are. I'm glad
yeah.
you are, but just
Oh,
realize it's just a baby step. It's like
oh, I know.
combining salt and garlic together.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and what happened was when I would make something, I would make little samples with the colors I wanted to use, and
but how would
I
you know
was
what
doing
colors you want to use?
that was just that's what I had to learn how to answer. You're exactly right. And but because it just seemed like a such a big job, I would never do it. So I finally said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. When I'm going to work with blue or greens, I'm going to take out every one that I have and I'm going to do the sample then. So that's how I'm starting. And so next time if I work with reds, I'm going to do all the reds. And I take my square and I leave part of it black, or I mean regular copper, and then I'll put a white spot on it and then gold and a silver. And so then when I put that one color over, then I've done the four levels that I want to see.
Okay.
And so then when I sit down and I want to work, I can take them all down off of there. And so I'm pretty thrilled that I've started doing this finally.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to add a challenge. I'm going to throw in a challenge for you. So,
Okay.
and this is based on how I make my color choices when I'm working. So it's not when I'm making tests, it's when I've sat down, I'm working on a piece, and there are spaces that I know are going to have blues and greens, or another spaces are going to have reds, something like that. So one of the things that I have set up challenges for myself is to not to figure out what the colors look like. I mean, I did that 50 years ago. But what I
Hmm.
want to know is, let's say a red. How can I find a dark, a medium, and a light in that red family? So, like, it's hard to find a light opaque red, but I can find a light, I can find an opaque pink. And with
Hmm.
transparent, I can definitely find transparent pinks that are light, medium, dark value. And the dark value pink is very close to some of the reds. So that gives me a range that I want to be, it's like my language, when you're using past tense, present tense, future tense. If I know how to use those different words, I can, I can communicate much better. So if I
Hmm.
can take a color and know, oh, I can use this, this, and this, and it's going to give me dark to medium to light. That makes it so much easier then. And I don't keep trying to find new reds. It's like collecting more
Hmm.
reds is not going to make me a better artist. But my ability
Yeah.
to use those three reds together
Yeah.
and to imagine, oh, a little bit of the dark with a lot of the medium and a little bit of the light, or a lot of the light with a little bit of medium and a little bit of red. See, those are going to look totally different, those different
Hmm.
types of combinations. And that's my language that I'm going to be using as I'm making my artwork. So I can do that for each color. You know, I can find a dark, a medium, and a light value for purple or blue or green. But then I can take it the next step. You don't need to do all these steps at once, but this would be the next challenge. Then for each color, let's say blue, what if I found a dark, a medium, and a light blue green? Or what if I found a dark, medium, light blue purple? So on either side of that blue on the color wheel, where the blue's next to the green and the blue's next to the purple, there's that bluish purple or bluish green. And then when I can find those colors, find the dark, medium, and light bluish purple, and use those over and over and over again, then it's becoming my language. So that's how because that's how I'm using my language when I enamel. That's the language I need to learn. Now, if
Hmm.
you only were working with pastel colors and light values, why bother learning about all your dark colors?
Right.
So it,
Yeah.
so it partially depends on what you're trying to do.
Mhm. Well, and one of the ways that I realized quickly, this is going to help me because you just touched on it a while back, is I don't have all of my enamel or leaded enamels that I, want to get, but I think it's going to keep me from overbuying. If I can do just what you said, get those
Yeah,
colors and I like them and work with them and mm,
yeah, because your goal is to create a language. It's not to know what every possible green there is and what it looks like.
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have so many green transparent colors, Charlotte, and I use the same three almost all the I mean, it's embarrassing for me to say this, because my friend Marilee, who has this, she has her own enamel, her daughter, and she had their own enameling company. She's talking about all these different colors, and to me, I might prepare I might prepare 6 greens when I sit down to make a piece, and you know which ones I use? The same 3 that I've been using for 10 or 15 or 20 years because they become my
Yeah.
language.
Hmm.
I know what they're going to look like when I put them next to the other colors. I know how dark or how light they're going to be. And I don't care if it's a slightly different shade of green. It's like, no, that's just going to confuse the heck out of me.
Hmm.
And so, when I was making the pieces that are in that magazine,
Yeah.
so I set up I call this a quest. When I start to imagine an uncertain goal and I'm going to take an uncertain path to get there. And I'm going to discover along the way. So I set up a quest back in, I think, the end of April of last year, that my quest was going to be to create a new enamel language for myself, that I was bored, and that's what I needed to do. Now, it took off in many different directions, and I ended up really creating a new metal language for myself more than a new enamel language, which is exactly what I needed, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But what I did in the beginning, when I started shifting from just making marks and playing with images and playing with paints, when I started enameling, I decided I wanted to work with opaque colors or be able to combine opaque colors with my transparents and become more fluent. And so what I did, I chose, I am just going to start working with opaque purple. And I found a couple opaque purples to play with. And those were almost the only opaque colors I used for like 6 months. And I picked a blue gradation that I had not used before. So
Hmm.
the normal dark, medium, light blue that I used in all my old night and day earrings for 30, 40 years, I put those to the side and picked out a new blue combination so that I could start to become familiar with that new language, because my goal was
Hmm.
to create a new language for myself. So I created self-imposed limitations. I can only use these opaque purple colors. And you know what I ended up doing was I found one that I really, really liked. And no matter what I tried to do with the others, I ended up covering them up as I was working with the one I liked.
Yeah.
And it made things easier to learn
Hmm.
because I wasn't so confused with opaque greens and opaque blues and opaque reds and opaque oranges.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think it
Well,
ties
and,
into what
and
you're saying, to simplify your process.